What's up, everyone? Tonight we're live with Miles from Cold Blooded Connoisseurs. And before we jump in, we just want everyone to support USARC. They are the lifeline of the reptile hobby in case, legislation comes and basically tries to take away our reptiles. Uh, so, how's your night going, Miles?
It's going pretty good. It's been a long day, but now I'm relaxing. It's been, I don't know, whenever I'm off from my day job, it's not really being off. It's when I grind and spend all the hours with the animals. So it's fun, but it's tiring.
Yeah. So, on
Dude,
a average day off, do you pretty much spend all day working on the reptiles then?
so yeah, at least my weekday. So my schedules, I got Sundays off, and I try and work things around actually giving me that one day a week to have a little bit of a break, and
Yeah.
just whether that be going to see family, hanging out with friends, or recharging the batteries. But usually Tuesdays, this week Wednesday. My weekdays usually all about just the just a lot of animal care. um,
Yeah.
Thankfully, with the skinks, it helps a lot that my whole adult collection only eats once a week.
Yep.
So Tuesdays is like the big day. I'm up early making like a couple of 5 gallon buckets of animal slop.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's good to have gotten that done, and now we're here. But
Does it do you normally make I know you got a good sized collection. Do you normally make that big of a batch at once?
yeah, I mean, I've got like 250 animals right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Uh,
so it makes sense then.
yeah, so it's like I'll do like big bags of frozen vegetables from Costco, a lot of cans of dog food. Um, what else? I've been experimenting with Missouri diets. So they're omnivore pellets, and then they're insectivore diets, incorporating that in, as well as like blended organ meats and things like that. And I'll just make like a different slop, eggs as well. I'll do like a different thing, slightly different every week. But yeah, it's usually filling a 5 gallon bucket is too hard to mix it. So it's probably close to like a 5 gallon bucket if filled to the top, or the food every week. But I mean, sometimes I don't use it all, and like I will incorporate whatever's left over into feeding, because I am feeding yearlings and the babies way more often than that. So it's like that's made on usually Tuesdays, and there's leftover to help. It's like a part of the diet for the rest of the week for other stuff.
Now, based on the size, do you actually use a spoon to mix it, or do you got like what they use for mixing paint on the drill?
I need to get one of those, but I'm using like a big spoon.
Okay.
So it's like, yeah, I probably should get one of those metal drill mixers.
Yeah, I was thinking it'll work pretty good, even though it's not paint, but shit, you
I
can clean it
also
off.
want to get to the point, like I have too many. Um, I've got to start making a hard decision on what to start letting go that's older. There's a lot of different projects that I've wanted to do, and what really has added to the problem is all of these pos het aneries. Like Victor, who you had on,
Yep.
popped out the anery last year, and then a few more this year. So as soon as he popped out one last year, I just told myself, because I have the male that made the two hets that he paired together. They're half siblings that anery popped out of.
Yep.
So unless somehow, I mean, it's not proven on my end yet, but unless somehow he had two different animals from two different US based lines having anery in them, which doesn't make any sense, I've got a het male that has started it all. And I had only sold 3 offspring of his prior to finding that out. So I have like 2 racks. I have like 30 of his babies now that are like his 2-year-olds, yearlings, that I've just kept everything else back to try and see what I can do with that.
Yeah, that makes it hard.
There was no expectation to expand on really anything other than like 1 or 2 holdbacks here or there prior to that. So once that happened, I being stubborn and just saying I can find the time, I've got the space, bought my racks, used up what space I've got, and now I'm actually at like max capacity, which is probably a good thing I didn't have the best season this year. I've been able to think about what I want to work with going forward and not have too much going on.
So for people that don't know, I got the anery pulled up that Victor produced to get a good idea of what it looks like. And based on that, you know, that definitely makes it hard having a posshead army.
Yeah,
But
and then what really hurt this year is I don't know. I rely heavily on the outside elements. It's relatively well insulated, but I've got a 2-car garage that's detached that's been kind of retrofitted specifically to house all the skinks. It's where I primarily keep everything. And this last season, I don't know what happened with weather. I usually utilize the fact that the door's only semi-insulated for like the roll-up door portion to help control temperature to go through brumation. I woke everything up and started breeding everything, and we had just a pretty major cold front, and it shut down everybody. Like nothing wanted to breed. I even turned temps up, threw heaters on. It's something snapped him out of it, and I didn't get the original like white northern that was head anery. He didn't want to breed anything the whole year, like the whole season. Couldn't get anything going with it. Also, couldn't get anything going with a lot of stuff. I had like a week where things were firing, and then 2 where it just all completely went to a halt, and then it picked back up a little bit, but it was strange. I still don't really 100% understand why everything also was born super late. So even the stuff that bred before things shut back down, it's like they retained sperm and didn't like start the process because I got in 2024, I got babies as early as May, June, and the beginning of July. Everything this year, I think, let me look. I think the first thing I got was the 3rd week of July. Might be the 2nd.
with utilizing,
I got babies as late as September this year.
wow, that's
and I don't want to jinx it, but I have 2 that bred late after the shutdown that kind of look like they might be. One of them looks like it could still drop. I don't think it's gonna happen. I think it's just gained a lot of weight, but like it's been a really strange year.
So what I would be curious on, I noticed some like it's starting to get cold here. I got 2 skinks that are actually dropping plugs now before like I cool everything, so to speak. It does seem, I wonder where I'm going over time. Is it going to end up being more yearly like ball pythons, or is it going to be a set season like as the animals adapt to where we live?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I like was starting to get the idea that maybe it would be, if I read the animals, it could be like a year-round thing as they get used to here, especially because we have such mild weather
Yeah.
all across the board throughout the year. But I'm not too far off from like where James Fenn's at, and he's been just like so consistent, same time of year every year, and he's got animals that have had 20 years plus to sync with our West Coast climate. Maybe it's a little different because he's inland, and there's a little bit more of like a true winter, I guess, being at the desert. But it's possible for sure. I mean, I know my seasons kind of bit varied a little bit as is since I started doing it, even though I've kind of just done brumation pretty consistently. My day is the weekend after Thanksgiving is when I shut things down every year. And then I kind of check on them. I go through December. Don't really even, it gives me like a month off with the adults, but once January hits, I'll usually check on everybody once or twice a week to see if there's any motion, if anything's developing. I feel like every year has been different when they've wanted to, like, they kind of start to wake up on their own, regardless of me doing anything with temperature. Found that the temps just help speed the process up so I can line everything up for when I'm trying to breed them. But I thought I had things kind of figured out. Like, I think last time we talked, when I was on here with you, my babies hadn't started dropping yet, but it was right before that last season. And I was feeling pretty good about it. I ended up getting 21 litters. I think it was 226 animals in 2024 off of 30 something pairings. And I
Can't
thought I
argue
had
with
it
that.
all figured out. And now this year I got 9 out of 47. Although I think 40 of those 47 only paired once. Like, it was so weird getting things, and I think part of it was I was set this year. I had a plan. I had everything in writing. Like, this one's paired to this one. This one's paired to that one. Because so much of it was chasing Anery
Yeah.
and kind of doing it that way. In past years, I've had a plan A, a plan B, and a plan C as to if the male and female seem to be in their window at the same time. I didn't do that with anybody this year. I think part of it was I was like, I don't need it to be, I don't need 40 litters, but we can try. And if they're
Yeah.
the right ones, great. But if they're the wrong ones, I don't think I can have that many animals. But it went pretty far in the other direction. I was kind of thinking it would be somewhere in the middle.
So, do you think it'd be beneficial to have something to insulate your garage door temporarily if needed?
It would, except for how well it helps. I guess if it's something I can take, like, put in and take out, because it helps tremendously getting them cool enough to not have it so insulated, but yet it's still, everything's completely shut and protected from like animals and anything from the outside getting in. It doesn't have the garage doesn't have windows. I could set up air conditioning or something to drag in the cold air from outside, but it just kind of, during their brumation, the lack of insulation really helps bring in the cold air, bring the temperatures down to get them to go through their cycle. This was just the first time that once things started ramping back up, I've never had to experience it getting cold again to a point where it started to shut things down.
And I know talking with Victor, he kind of had similar where it, the weather, I think he's a little more north of you, but his weather was kind of on and off, not consistent how he'd like.
Yeah, he's not too far from me. He's about an hour south of where I'm at, so our weather pretty much on par. Um, Yeah, but I mean, thankfully, again, yeah, even though it was weird, I think if I had less to work with and less I was trying to do, if I had shaved it down, I probably could have figured it out. But it definitely just threw off the whole routine and like me kind of based on looking at what happened the last 2, 3 seasons, seeing like, okay, on this week, this is when things are probably going to start getting going. This is what I'm expecting sheds to happen on the males where they're really going to show interest. And it just whacked out everything. And I just like, I wasn't prepared for it as well. Think if I had more time, I might have been able to like be out there when I had it blocked out time and kind of gotten reading their body language. But I think ultimately it just changed their window and I wasn't prepared to adapt to it.
Do you think it'd be better this upcoming year to breed less and focus more on the anery? Like, I don't know how many more polygenic stuff you bred.
That's the plan. That's a big plan for this year. Well, actually, if I can get to it, it's just a big time commitment that I don't have right now, but I was gonna try and set up outdoor enclosures.
Yeah.
And I was gonna try and do some of the stuff that I'm not as like it doesn't isn't as important to me to happen in year one. Was gonna see how they do in pairs outside and pits basically.
Yeah.
And then yeah, my personal like being there actually doing the breeding myself rather than letting nature take its course. Definitely going to focus on more of the anery stuff. I still want to get that albino going as well. Although I got to talk to Victor more about it. He was able to actually, I think he mentioned to you, or you guys were talking, he wanted to trade an anery for an albino, and Fairy Tale didn't want to do it. I guess that ended up going through. He ended up
Yeah.
getting that trade to happen, and it's his is confirmed a male. So I might not try my albino this year and focus on other things because I do have a het female, and I might let him try his luck because my male is small, kind of a little weaker than I'd like him to be on the smaller side, and I think he's because he's older. I
Yeah.
think he's more like I think he might be pure Eastern. So maybe a male that's got the northern influence, a little bit more vigor, might do the job.
Definitely wouldn't hurt,
Yeah.
especially some of the original ones, even if it does have some northern in it. I think some were kind of inbred.
The only thing that makes me very much not want to give up on my hyper female who has not also been problematic and not letting anyone breed her and that albino male. Both of them came through Canada from Hong Kong in the same shipment that the ivory that is proven to be anery came in. So when I was talking to Roger Kramer out of Australia about that when anery popped out, there's like a questionable belief that all of those might have been his animals that made it to Hong Kong. And if that's the case, they all are possible quad heads.
Well,
So like part of me is like I can't really totally give up on any of these guys or not put some degree of focus on them.
I wondered that, the hets I got from the white I have on loan from John, those are darker, so it makes me think they got hyper at least.
Which white is that?
So John, it's different, unrelated to yours and the other ones,
Hmm. Wait, for
allegedly.
like
It came in
Johnny Rack's John?
2014. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know you had them.
Yeah, I not last year. I didn't want to make possets to just didn't have room to hold a bunch of possets. So
Yeah,
when
don't get into my problem.
yeah,
Not
you know,
worth it.
so it didn't work out. I tried to do the head hypers to it. That didn't work out. They did none of the head hypers bred the 100% ones I got. And but yeah, those are a bit darker. And talking with Roger, you know, I know he produces a good amount, and in years, uh, you know, he's sold like we'll say lots of animals to like stores.
Well,
Within recently, there was a guy that got arrested in Australia that was using other people's credentials to buy animals from lots of people.
yeah, because he had said in years past, like he's had people come up, they got all the paperwork, but they don't seem like they're locals. And like he's doing everything that he's supposed to, his due diligence and everything checks out with the paperwork that's been given to him. But that's got to be how so many animals have made it out into the Asian markets.
Well, and I know you've heard how some of the animals don't always come in the best shape. The
Mm-hmm.
At least in this instance where this guy was arrested last year or the year before, whenever, it sounds like he didn't know how to take care of the animals either. So he's just kind of housing them. However, it's not the best plan, I guess would be the way to put it.
No,
You
but
know?
I mean, yeah, that's probably how it's happened with a lot of them. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if like part of why I'm having issues with the hyper and the albino that came in, and I was saying they're a little bit smaller. Part of it was thinking it was the Eastern influence, but another component could be strong white northern genetics, born earlier in the season, got some size on it, buys those, sends them out. They could have all been sent out and they could have gotten stunted from going through shipping 3 separate times and being not cared for properly when they're smaller.
Yeah.
And luckily, the white ones that came in were a little bit bigger and older. They can handle it a little bit better.
Yeah, that definitely helps them. And the one I got, uh, I size wise, I think it's closer to Eastern even. So I don't, you know, it's hard to say where, at least in pictures, yours look closer to Northern size.
Yeah. So all of the ones, because I've got the one from came through the urban gecko who was a nightmare, but that's where a lot of that stuff came from through Canada, from Hong Kong. That one's big. It's northern sized. That's the one that's got annery in it. That's head annery. And then I've got quite a few from Reptiles by Mac lines. I have 5 of them. They're they're not big for northerns, but they're bigger than my easterns. So like I could see where the like somewhere in between. But all the hets from the import one, they're all some like the biggest. So like they're all bred to different like northern lines, are all as big or bigger than the northerns in my collection. They're the big.
Yeah,
They're the biggest animals. The pos head anneries directly from the original male are the biggest animals in my collection. Out of
well,
everything.
that's good unrelated bloodline at
Yeah,
least to, you know, maybe, you know, they're not 100% pure Northern, but at least
they
making
might not
strong.
be. I mean, well, they're most definitely not because it was all of them got mixed up in Australia before they got out.
Do you think the Reptiles by Mac one, based on the numbers, I'm going to guess no, but those have any other genes floating in them?
I don't think so, but I know that I've learned a little bit more recently. Reptiles by Mac didn't start that line of them. They were the first one to buy a large group from another individual who also is working with hypers. So technically, there was somebody that was working with both and just hasn't released hypers yet into the U.S. market. But I don't think they've put them together yet. Or at least at the time that they were released out, I don't think there was any possibility of mixing those.
I would have think by the numbers they produce and
There's
release.
so many. Yeah, I would doubt it. I would doubt it's in the Reptiles by Mac lineage.
I think they had hypers at one point because they had pictures of them. But
yeah, so there was like Roosie's Reptiles or something that had, I don't know who that was. Someone on the East Coast had pictures.
Steve Roosis.
And then
I think he still breeds.
Someone on the West Coast bought the whites and the hypers from him. I don't know if I can. I don't know if I can say who this person is.
Probably better not to.
There's somebody out here that's ready to bring hypers to market in the next year or two. I've also heard stories of another person, I think through you, that there's a rumor about a $3,000 hyper in bulk. Then there's another person that's going to be bringing them to market but doesn't know. They claim they sold a large lot to Reptiles by Mac with the understanding that Reptiles by Mac was going to upsell or like take the price they were given and sell them.
Yeah.
Spread them out. And I guess Reptiles by Mac took them and bred them for 2 or 3 years instead or something like that. I don't know if that's true. But instead of selling them and being the middleman, they made more of them, like a lot more, like a lot. And that's how we got to where we are, where just they got flooded.
And I think that's the key on, any price is the number.
But I mean, there's somebody on Morph Market right now that has ivory listed for sale for $600. That might be who I'm talking about.
Well, and I suspected they were going to go down with, a lot of the ones that are floating around are still, upsailed by Reptiles by Mac, like people buy them and resell them.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, like, I know you and Tiki's got them that you're reproducing, and Victor.
Also, though, I will say that I think we're going to notice that I just don't think they did a good enough job outcrossing them. The like things I've seen in the 4 that I've raised up from Reptiles by Max lines, and just like underbites, like vigor, like the size and their growth rates compared to other animals, they are worse than some of the like litters that I kind of pushed it a little too far, mixing too much of Fenn's blood together without outcrossing.
Yeah.
And I've seen people on Facebook with like issues with like health issues with their ivories, and I think it has to do with they're not outcrossed enough, that line.
Makes sense.
I think there's still gonna be, if the popularity and interest from a pet trade is there. I mean, I don't know if I think there's a dead end for breeders trying to do a whole lot more with it. But I think that ethically outcrossing it and offering them, there's still going to be some degree of value, even if there's more and more of them, for people to seek out somebody that's taking more time with producing them.
Yeah, I think that's true. You see it even in ball pythons, the blue-eyed Lucies or, black-eyed leucistics, whatever. Those still catch, they're stunning animals. They're striking. They stand out. And just like them. Blue tongues are great pets. Easy
Definitely.
to care for. Wide variety of people can, care for them from kids to adults. So I don't see it dropping too low.
Yeah, especially if they keep them healthy. I do, fingers crossed, some people jumping into it though. I really hope people don't grab two from the same lineage and try and breed visual to visual.
Yeah. Well,
It's just I've seen. I think vending a couple of shows recently in the last year and a half has opened up, like, being able to have a lot of conversations with people jumping into this, a lot more one-on-one conversations than just a question here and there in Morph Market, has me just a little bit worried about how the information people have been given from, like, people that are reselling that aren't the actual breeders, and the vision they've given them on trying to get into this from a breeding standpoint. That's the only thing that worries me about morphs really quickly not in the hands of breeders rather than in the hands of wholesalers and hidden pet stores and things, is people not realizing it's all one line and not understanding the genetics and, like, health of animals if they're trying to get into it and want to breed those animals. If that makes sense.
so Victor's in the comments, and what he commented, I'm gonna pull it up so you can see too. I'm assuming this is the whites that they sell best, that 6 to 8.
Yeah, they I would agree. I in Anaheim, um there was a few people that had them. They were sitting, but there was one guy that was selling them for in that range, and, like, I saw, like, 5 people walking around with ivories that they purchased before they left the show, and they all were sold in that price range from a particular buyer or seller.
Well, and what
And
you mentioned, at
that's a good
least,
price. I mean, it's a little bit, it's not, I mean, it's a little steep for a pet, but it's a premium version of a pet from a color standpoint for a lot of people.
now I guess I have mixed thoughts on it being steep for a pet. It's hard because, you know, some will spend that, 500 to a grand on, but I do agree with, depending on supply and demand, that it might go down a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is finding, from at least from the pet side of things, is finding the happy medium of, like, keeping things where people, it's, like, not too high where people are completely, it's unattainable for some, but high enough where you're not getting people that are buying, like, a $30 Savannah monitor and are never gonna be able to pay the thousands of dollars in proper care in the setup and the whole husbandry side of things that a monitor lizard takes. That's kind of the other side, I guess, when you get to cheaper price on your animals.
Yeah, and then
I find the balance there, and it's like, even though it's supply and demand, at a certain point, you got to just stop supplying something if it's too cheap.
yeah, you don't want basically just to sell it for it to die,
Yeah, exactly.
or live a horrible existence its whole
I've
life.
been I've been having that problem on the chameleon side of things, especially at vending expos. Is people want to drop 600-700 for my most colorful chameleon, but then they want to, like, figure out how they can make a 20-gallon tank and do a setup for under $100.
Do you think it would be better to find more cheaper enclosures for people? Like, I know, like, PVC cost is expensive as it is, so that's kind of hard. Grow tents are becoming a affordable option.
Personally, I just, like, when you're in that, I like to think that if you're in the range, if you're buying a reptile, I like to tell people if you're buying a reptile for sub $500, like if you can't spend an equal amount on the care products, like it's just not just like I'd rather lose the sale and tell you that I don't think you're ready for this animal. I'm sure like I've done it plenty of times because I've had to figure out ways of housing lots and lots of animals at a low price, but I don't think I would want to tell anybody that's got a pet to do things the way I've done them because it's a lot of expertise over years of trial and error that's helped me see like okay, I'm testing something. I don't know if it's going to work, but at least I can see the body language of the animal and get an idea of if what I'm doing is wrong. And then I know I need to adjust it versus like, okay, this is like a cheap option, but then if it doesn't work for you, you're not going to see the problem until it's too late.
Well, and even, as I mentioned, the grow tents, even like morph markets and closures, their 4x2s are pretty inexpensive.
That's true. Yeah. Those are good. And then, yeah, grow tents are, they can't. So the only thing I've got with like a grow tent is I feel like, because I've thought about it with I have a monitor lizard that I'm working on building like a permanent cage for. Thought about doing a grow tent, but I'm just like, what is the point half the time? Like, if you're not even going to see it, like sometimes these animals aren't in the mood to like interact with you, but you want to still appreciate them. If you're not putting it in something that's like you can visually see it, what's the point from you as the owner side of it? It's like kind of finding the balance. Like I have a bad enough time having so many things in racks that I only get to see them when I pull out and interact with that specific animal. I don't know if from a pet side, if it works for sure, and it can be a very viable option. I just don't know if I see it as being like a positive way to have like your pet.
Some of the ones I've seen have bigger front windows where like the 4x2s I'm talking about in general almost have basically like a front opening size that would be similar to an enclosure. So that one at least you can see. But yeah, a lot of the bigger ones for monitors, those.
Wait, are they making them then for reptiles at this point? Because
this company is
okay. Because I'm only familiar with like the ones that actually are people growing weed and like are turning around and using it for reptile enclosure instead. But that would make sense to use the same materials and build them to the specs of a cage. I could definitely see that working really actually quite well.
Yeah, I'll have to find the link. They even have like a 3 set where it's like 3 4x2x2s for like $400. So that's if you wanted to start a small breeding group of blue tongues, that's 1 male, 2 females or something for enclosures, and
yeah,
you could see them visually still. And another option I saw that, depending on the person, would take some modifications. There's bigger, they're like basically 4 foot by 2 foot plastic towel storage things with plastic front opening doors you could see through. That you would need some type of modification to keep the animal in better. I think it's just a little magnet. You don't have to worry about your towels jumping out, but there's other options that are good size.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess they're getting better and better with that as well.
But I get what you're saying. You don't want to suggest too cheap to your keeper, and then they get, you know, a 20-gallon tank and keep it in there its whole life.
Yeah, definitely. Or just like just letting people, it's like, if you don't want to spend X amount on taking care and making sure that it's got an enriched life, like, then like you shouldn't be getting the expensive one. You should just get a classic. Like, I know
Yeah.
you want the white one, but it's like, if you're saying that buying this is too expensive to then buy all the like nice stuff to give it the best environment, like, then there's other animals that can satisfy the same thing. But yeah, but as things get, there's more innovative ideas and things get better. I definitely have seen some cool stuff and want to test things, because I don't want to recommend anything I haven't used, at least myself. But yeah, hopefully it continues. I mean, it's better for us, the more affordable enclosures and the caging can be. It's more smaller barrier of entry for people to get animals from us. I
Well, and
just
it's,
Yeah, sorry.
oh, I was gonna say it's that, you know, it's the nice happy medium. The, you know, it's the animals aren't getting sacrificed on care yet. You know, they could get everything they need, $200, you know, maybe depending on what.
Yeah. I'm kind of hypocritical, because when I started this, like, the first few skinks I got were in sterilite tubs with heat pads underneath them, but that's also because I was told that works.
Yeah.
I know it works. It's just I don't want to recommend that to anybody. Like, it's just like it'll work. It's not ideal. It's not gonna be fulfilling for you, and it's not ideal for them.
Well, and it looks better going forward, you know, in general, to put out that best care aspect, you know, to
Mm-hmm.
try to get keepers to do good care. Otherwise, you know, PETA or
I
legislation
will
will come
say though,
down.
that's one of the hardest things I do have to face, is when people ask me about setting up a cage for their new blue tongue skink they get from me. And I go through and I talk to them and they get a little overwhelmed and they're like, "Can you just send me a picture of yours?" And I'm like, "Ugh, no, because I don't want you to put yours in a CB70 rack, because like that
Yeah.
is what I'm doing and it works for me, but it's not what I want anyone that's getting one as a pet to do."
So moving forward, have you thought of switching it up? I know you mentioned that you're
I
going
wanna
to
get out of
outdoor.
it. I wanna try So this first year, I wanna get outdoor cages set up, and I wanna not put them out during the, like, worst part of winter here. Just, like, I don't wanna shock them and it being, like, way harsher than they were used to indoors. But as, like, things are starting to warm up a little bit, like, when I would normally start waking stuff up, I wanna introduce them to the outside. I wanna do, like, 10 cages, and if it works really well, I'll try and go the full year. Like, I'll do some things to give them some shade, maybe some, like, misters 10 feet up in the air like I do with the chameleons, to cool out the area enough during, like, their hottest weeks of the summer, so they're not, like, too warm. Because I feel like if I can keep a chameleon outdoors in our hottest weather of Southern California, the skink should be fine if I just make a couple adjustments. If things go well and they look happy and healthy and don't look like they're going downhill at all, I want to move everything to that. But I just don't know. We're not Florida. I don't know if it's gonna work. I had lost one, found it 6 months later, twice the size. So like they're capable of thriving, especially if I have protection against predators. So I want to try that. If that works well, I'd like to try and get them all outside. If I can't, at least get enough outside to start transitioning into caging rather than racks. But I've got too many animals and too much financially invested into the current setup, and the fact that it works, the fact that they still live totally, like there's no signs that they're having problems in the setup. I just think it could be better.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a long process, assuming everything works out to make that change.
So I know there's been people that have done it in Texas, and people do it. Australia is different because it's their natural habitat. But where I'm going, I know with modifications, I'm pretty sure where you're at, they could. One thing that I think would be nice, and this one adds to the expense, some way you could retract and extend like shading if needed, or the misting system, like you said, to cool it down. That would work good. And imagine, as long as you have good drainage, you'd always be good on that end.
Yeah, luckily my whole yard is, especially if I build it up a little bit with their own substrate to dig. I don't know what naturally the ground is, but it's like really sandy, and we'll get like, it'll like look like it's gonna flood out whenever we rain, and all of it'll be drained out within, like, as soon as it stops raining, it drains through in like 30 minutes. So as long
And
as
that
I've got enough like protection up above, like if I'm spraying the area, things like, it just soaks up all the water and doesn't affect anything. It's been really good for everything else. Also, not that this is a great thing, but half of my yard, like I have got, like, so I've been thinking about doing some of them, trying them, building their enclosures above, like I have like a concrete slab, so I could do planter boxes above that filled with a few inches of substrate, and then so on. I've got one half of my yard, water runs down concrete and it pools up, so there's like a sump pump that soaks up any water. So anytime I like mist things and there's too much water, it all like kind of goes to one area and gets shot out the drain. So there's
so
other ways depending on what part, but I'm not too worried about water.
Yeah,
It's
it
just,
sounds like it'd be good setup.
yeah, I think it can. I just have to slowly create the space. Right now, so much of my yard is like, it's just overgrown and not well taken care of. So it's already not being used. So if I just like clean it up and start building, I could probably do. I could do a lot of cages because we don't use our yard for like anything other than animal related stuff as is. And if
How big is your yard?
I don't know, it's a 68. I'm on a 6,800 square foot lot, and my house is 1,500. So there's probably another 1,500 feet out that's concrete, and there's at least 3,000 square feet of dirt.
So a good amount you could do.
A flat dirt if I want to just give up. So if I wanted to just, we've talked about clearing some of it out and having like personal space, like my girlfriend and I, like an outdoor space for us. But I'm like, but if I can give you the living room with no reptiles, like we could just take that and put more reptiles out there. And she's been cool with that too. So I could possibly use it all. We'll have to see.
You might want something though that's kind of an in between, where you can be out there, relax and enjoy it, look at everything, even if it's 10 by 10 with a little fire pit or something.
Potentially, I mean, kind of like what I was kind of envisioning, at least starting it out, is I'll just start with like one section. Well, actually, no, my first thought was I was gonna build like 2 pits on different parts of the yard that where sun hits differently. So like some that get a lot of morning sun, some that get a lot of that are they'll have an option where there's just sun baking down on them where they're going to need a shaded half because the sun's just hitting it all the time, and some that get the afternoon sun. And first, observe and see how if it affects how the animals act throughout the day. If having a basking spot in the morning is extremely influential than being in a spot in the yard that might not get to warm up till midday or and all the different sides before I start going crazy and building a whole bunch of them, make sure everything's in an area where they look content and are doing well. I think just logically rationally it seems the most sense that the best case would be something that's got early morning basking. They got a chance to get out there, kind of charge the batteries, being cold-blooded, get their blood flowing, because I've seen, at least with with other species, I've seen they'll kind of heat up in the morning, use that body heat as their way to get around, and they're not necessarily just sitting out there the remainder of the day. Chameleons for sure seem to do that when I'm out in the morning. As soon as lights go on, they make their way to their heat spot, and they're not really under it unless they're gravid. The shinglebacks, same sort of thing. They're only ever under the heat in the first couple hours of the day. I'd never see them there otherwise. So I would kind of guess that would probably be the best way, where they got that morning sun over any other, but I kind of want to experiment.
So from a natural perspective and a working perspective, this is going to change. Keep that in mind. But wouldn't both work? The animals would adapt to when they notice that the sun is out where they can charge.
They might. I would think that, especially as resilient as are, they would adapt. My question is, will they adapt well enough from a reproductive standpoint, from breeding, from being in optimal health, or will they just adapt as well as they have in racks without UVB, like we were originally taught is totally fine with these guys, where they do well enough, but not necessarily optimizing things for them. I want to get to the point where I've got some sort of evidence behind the way I'm doing things, where I'm confident that I'm moving in the direction of optimizing, not just having some degree of success. Right now, I feel like I've been operating at I'm succeeding. I'm getting what I need to out of this, but I know I can be doing better.
Now, this one might be hard to see, and we'll have to touch back on this, in years to come. You might see overall benefits to the animals, but necessarily you might not have the exact percent breeding success either, though. Altering it might be better for the animals, but then you might not be able to. There might be more you have to do to get them to breed, whether that's something simple as rotating males out of pits, which simple enough.
Could also be the exact opposite, though. I just anecdotally, from my experience over the years, think that more or less the success rate I've had has to do with my ability to be available and read the body language of the animals and pair them at the right time. Even if they mate, the male might overpower the female, she might not have been perfectly in her window, or might have been kind of late but more tolerant. Could be a reason for slugs, or male's not quite ready but you're throwing them there. There's a million different reasons, but potentially the opposite, in the sense that you give them a space, they have the ability to get away from each other, but they can come find each other whenever, and they're not at the mercy of when you put them together. Guess we'd have to test it, and probably as I'm phasing, start doing better records of like who's producing how many, like what's going well, what's not. Am I still getting better success out of the ones that are indoors? I don't know.
I'm hoping that, you know, depending on where you put the enclosures and with solar powered, you'd be able to do it this way too. To put some cameras in the enclosures to watch them, especially during breeding, because I wonder, and some of it would depend on the male, as you know, some of males are more willing to vigorously keep going to get the job done, even if the female's stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas, so I guess I wonder if you're going to still see more breeding, like the exact reason of the success. I wonder what it will be, I guess, be the way to put it, you know.
And that's true. And I just don't know if I'm not sure if I'll be able to figure out that. That's kind of been part of the difficulty, right? For all of the different things. We have a lot of theories. And then when you start to think you've catching on to something, I feel like then you get that year where something throws you in the opposite direction. And you're like, well, that whatever that I thought was making sense for 2-3 seasons, this just proved that that's not it. I don't know. I feel like there's a code to crack, and every time I get close or think I'm on the right track, I'm not. Also, I haven't been doing this for too long.
No, yeah, and it's an ever learning thing, you know. It's the
but
animals.
Even James Fenn, who I talked to quite a bit, he's really mentored me a lot of ways. He even got thrown. He's been like really dialed in the last 5 or 6 years, and he got thrown a loop that he wasn't ready for with this same the cold that I'm talking about that hit Victor and I messed with him. He still had a pretty great season because he had planned to pair like 100 females and still I think he still pulled it off like a good number, but he was shooting for in 2024 he was over 500 animals produced. He was shooting for 800 this year, but he was like, it's a bad year, but I'm close to 4.
I think if he did hit 8, the price would drop significantly.
It's probably good they did it. And that might be why a lot of people were coming to me looking for like cheaper ones. Maybe some of the people, because he wholesales. I found out over the last couple of years, like a ton of his animals go to a ton of pet stores all over the place. Like lines are everywhere.
Yeah, that's
he's got
good and
one
bad.
friend of his that before I knew it, I had gotten a couple animals and I figured out they were his, not just from his lines. They were his. He's got one guy that gets several hundred from him a year and sells them at shows and provides them to other people. But I didn't realize he's been doing those kind of numbers for a while.
Well, and some of that, the key to it is right there, that network, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Having, you know, say me and you, we had 800, let alone caring for 800 be a lot, but
I would die.
Wouldn't be able to, you know, easily do it. Whereas, you know, having the 20 plus years,
wouldn't be able to move them at all. Like that's, but yeah, so even somebody that's been so consistent to where he has people come and he's like they ask him before the breeding season, like, can I get X amount from you? And he's been able to year over year like promise people X a number of heads can still have a year where he gets thrown a wrench in it with these guys.
Well, I think part, the weather plays a role, but also how we do it indoors. I wonder if pheromones play a role too. Whereas maybe when they're outdoors, and this is speculating at best, there might not be as many in a combined area, so your male might not overbreed the females either too.
That's a good point. That's definitely, I didn't think about that, but that could definitely be a factor. My biggest thought was that when it was just more so the idea that it's not just the temperature and ramping them back up. Like every single one of them seems to have like some trigger, and they're not always perfectly in sync. And I was thinking it was more or less just our human decision and potential error of not reading the animals at the right time and getting them paired at the right time. And I think that part at least gets solved when you have them kept in an enclosure and environment together.
Yeah, and
there's just too many different factors that I don't think everyone's having the same problem, or I don't think that the difficulties are necessarily the same thing across the board.
I also think too the amount, if say you have 3 pairs, you could focus a lot more. Whereas if you have 300 pairs, you're kind of limited to the interactions you're spending on that breeding attempt.
This is also very true. Yeah. The only thing is too, when you have 3 pairs, if something goes wrong, I mean, yeah, maybe you do everything right, and then another way you might not know if you haven't done it enough. Maybe one male just something didn't click because and they weren't interested that year or something, and you might think that it's you, but could just be odds. But yeah, no, I would say more or less the less you have, the more you can focus on catching all the right timings and seeing them interact in a way that knowing that you're putting them together at the right time.
This one, when it's, you'll have to wait till next breeding season. The area of your skinks that are on, the side of the house where the sun rises, you should see if those breed first. Mine,
I'm trying to think about it.
the east side of your garage, mine, it seems like ours on that side and it just could be random.
Do you have is on the side that the sun rises, is the wall like that, the exterior connected to the exterior of your property?
Yeah.
I realize on the side where the sun rises or it first hits, I actually have another room that we added on that's fully insulated and separate. It's like where I would keep all of my indoor chameleons. We added it. It's like an add-on we did behind the garage.
Okay.
There's a buffer.
So it might not affect it as much then with you.
I have so much stuff that was scattered around before where I've started organizing things by like red lineage, stuff that I want to breed kind of like that's now is more, it makes more sense. Before it was just kind of like when I had an open spot and I needed to give someone a larger enclosure, I'm like, you moved here, and I put your tab, your printed out like a little sticker with like what their everything was. Finally have it organized. So I'm trying to think what was where, but that would be interesting to check, because I'm sure I could dig up from memory and from like some records where things were last year and see if there's a connection there.
Well, in worst case, with so much moving around, this is something to keep in the back of your mind where you're at. It might not change anything. That time of year, it's significantly colder outside here. So you could probably feel that warmth of the sun hitting, whereas, you guys might have, I don't know, at least above 50s where we're below 30, some days. And
yeah, we're thankfully, I think we get 1 or 2 nights, at least less than a week. Always less than a week, but usually it's, I can count it on one hand, the amount of nights we get below 40.
Yeah.
And then daytime, man, I don't know if there's days that maybe 1 or 2 days that don't get above 50 in the winter. But like I said, it's really mild, but thankfully it's enough to still get the seasons going for everything.
Based on that, I do think you'd be successful outside.
The one thing that worries me, but I don't know if a day or two, especially in the outside world, would really mess with it, is like a couple of years ago, for example, we're in the middle of brew mating. If I didn't have air conditioning, I don't know if a day would really mess it up, but like an 85-degree Christmas. Like it just happens like sometimes where we get these, but I don't know, especially with northerns, how important it is to really get them down in temperature, to really do like a structured long brumation, or if they just need an overall feeling of seasonal changes. Because I know some people have done it. I think Diana Mason, if you know her, at one point bred some that never brumated. Like she tested it out and she had viable offspring doing that.
Yeah, it's so some of mine, like especially random males, I've had come into season the same time, and I was like, well, he's dropping plugs, let's try it, and he never brumated, and I got multiple litters, so it's definitely true. I think on that, especially where she's at, they're feeling that outside cold.
Right.
You could even feel it here when the heat's on, that, the house temp says it's 72, but you're still feeling that little bit of chill. So they're transitioning, and that one was where we previously lived. That animal was by where we kept our dubia. I was trying to keep it from not brumating. So it stayed significantly warmer, more consistent, but it still was enough of a shift that swung it in,
Yeah.
So, that I agree with what you're saying. They don't need that, drop to 50.
But something that triggers a little bit. Yeah, I don't know. But then on the other hand, I've thought that, and maybe I just thought wrong. I've tried to blame the fact that weather making things funky for a little bit of time is what's caused them to be wonky and not go through the cycle. So I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm still not convinced that anything's for sure one way or the other.
I think it's multiple factors. In the wild, a cold front could come in and shut breeding off, where, whatever's bred, or, different animals might get into windows later and come across females after that random cold snap. So where, having numbers is key to help, increase the success on a number stance. Last year, certain males we were hoping to breed, never did, or one was like a month later. You got into the window? And by then, nothing's in range.
But yeah, also the numbers, having numbers to increase success can be a little bit overrated. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but I know if I have important pairings, having numbers doesn't help because you just never get to them when you're focused on trying to get certain stuff done. Got limited time in the day to take care of everything and pair, because you got to, when you're doing it in a smaller environment, you got to be watching them and making sure they don't kill each other. It's not like they have a space to run off like again you would outdoors.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can be like, oh, I can hedge my bets by having way more to breed, but if you have goals, you're trying to hit those, you're just going to completely miss even trying with some of them. Like, I know I did not make it this past season to even attempt to pair some of the stuff that I was excited to. So I'm still focusing on goal number one, and it didn't even work out. So it is, I'm gonna again do the outdoor stuff, but also try and find a happy medium between the numbers game and like being able to focus on them and focus on what I want.
I think that is a good point. That happy medium. I wanted to, pull this up while I was thinking of it. Even though you didn't have amazing. Oop, wrong button. Number success. Oh man, how did I do that? 1 sec. You were able to at least get that one animal up.
Question mark animal.
Yeah, there we go. Which I could see, even though you said it doesn't, you were thinking no anery because the eyes, I could see that platinum vibe you're talking about.
I mean, I saw it when it was first born. It looked kind of like it, and I just threw it off to the side. And then several people have brought it back to my attention, but anyone that's actually produced a good number of platinums, especially in Australia, have told me they don't see it.
Now I wonder
if the polygenics I've got working underneath it though could be making some differences.
I agree with that assumption. They haven't done a lot with polygenics where we have years of just Fen alone, let alone all the other breeders that have done work.
The other thing that's interesting, and these are animals I haven't had a chance to breed. I mean, again, this is like it's a lot of kind of hoping and praying based on this one litter that popped out, but it's had me thinking. I have like just these are all of my 100% het white northern or ivory from the line that's the anery came out of. 90% of them all have like this ghostly appearance to them. They all look like there's like a hypo kind of tint to them, and then 10% of them look darker than a normal classic. I haven't had a chance to breed any of the darker ones yet, but it's like that theory that maybe hyper's floating around and like the het hyper influence. It's the only other thing that has me a little bit kind of thinking like, okay, maybe we're onto something. But then the other thing that throws me a wrench is the ones that were used to make this were not the darker ones.
What about the tails on them? Because I have 10 of variability of some that I know for sure I'm pretty sure would not have hyper based on the way they look. They're way too white, and whereas others, at least the tail has a decent amount of black on it.
I feel terrible saying this, but I think I've overlooked tails as a component to so many of my animals when I look at the traits and look at like the characteristics that I'm liking or trying to make decisions on. I don't know if I've paid enough attention to their tails.
Well, and the hard part, the amount of paw sets and hets you're looking at versus us, we're growing 10 up over a year and a half.
Honestly, though, now that I think about it, all of them, just in general with the blue tugs, I feel like everything's always been a focus on like, what am I doing with pattern and color in the body, and am I getting it to the head? Like that's just always been the focus. I don't know if there's very many animals in all of my collection have paid attention to what's going on with the tail, other than is it long and look like it's a male, or is it short and female looking? But that's really gives me a whole new lens I kind of want to look at with a lot of stuff.
Well, in a lot of them, initially, there wasn't too much color on the tail, or a lot would fade, where now a bit are keeping that color, and I should add, there's other breeders that have great colors on their tails too. Just with polygenics, it doesn't, what you get, you don't always know.
Mm-hmm.
So there's kind of mixed thoughts on the best way to label some of that stuff, and as nicer polygenics become more available, do you think it will just be, kind of like the bearded dragons where you'll have orange, red, yellow?
I think
from a labeling standpoint,
to a certain degree it should, and probably will, but for most of my stuff, I've just so far, a lot of it, it's not till the last 2 years that I've really been reproducing animals where both parents are produced by me. So I've just been like, I'm just going to label stuff as what this breeder labeled theirs, and it was crossed to what this breeder. So it's just, if Fenn said this is a red line and a magma line, it's red/magma crossed to a sunrise, or a sunrise outcross. Like I've just been doing that and popping around. And then if like something's been now, I've had quite a few where it's like a mix of a little bit of magma. I've outcrossed it. There's orange this, sunrise that, and it's just like everything is consistently like an orange, but like it's an orange cross is like the label. But if people want to know the genetics behind it, like in my description, I'll be like, it's this, and this.
Yeah.
But from like a title standpoint, I think so. I think that's probably the way to go, is that people should probably describe from like a header, like especially like using Morph Market, for example. I think people's title should be probably described kind of like they are with bearded dragons. Like you're describing the colors, show the genetics, and like in the breakdown in the description.
And like, so you work with green trees, and with them, lineage is pretty
lineage
valuable.
is nuts. Some of these charts and the depth and degree, like I wish I had that with some of the blue tongue stuff, especially with how all the line bred traits, like I feel like it would have painted a better picture.
So
like sunrise, sunset, orange lines, like Jeff Green's red line, and the magma stuff. If we had charts, I feel like it would help so much to have helped figure out how we got from whatever it was starting and how line bred something is to pop out and be as red as something is, versus were they just like the one-off in a litter that was like, I don't know. Sorry, just kind of go ahead.
No, I get what you're saying.
But it's a lot of work. Clearly you needed to start with this mindset from the beginning, like backtracking. Now we could only do it going forward. I think
So I
it's
got
really
all like I started ours to an extent this year for our website, then I stopped because I didn't know there would be less people care about it, and like we
yeah.
have some third and fourth generation where we have, 8 different lines mixed together that
I think I'm gonna do it. Start doing it with all the ones where, like I was saying, I'm starting to get these animals where I've produced both the mother and the father, and some of them are getting to the point where it's like, oh, I not only produced the mom, but like the mom's mom came from me.
yeah.
I think with everything produced in house, I think that's probably where I'm gonna draw the line. But I want to do it. I think it's cool. I'm gonna start working on that. And if beyond that, it'll just be like this bloodline from this breeder. And if people want it, they want it. But yeah, it doesn't seem like people even ask very much.
No, and a lot being pet keepers, that's where the phenotype of, hey, it's red, it looks red, based on the parents, it should stay red.
But
That's all they.
that's a huge part of it too. Is if you understood the genetics and talk to the breeder, other than just that, is like that's not the case a lot of times with red, unless at least from my experience, a lot of stuff that's red that you don't have a good genetic mix with Swedish lines, sunrise, some of the other orange lines, like it turns to rust. Most of the stuff that's red without another enhancing color component becomes like a rust colored animal when it's older. But as soon as you've got genetics thrown in with some other nice polygenics, kind of holds that. Kind of like a lot of those ones that get better and better with age.
And see, the hard part on some of ours, like we got floating possible hets that, we're hoping are the new genes. So I don't know if that is helping, but yeah, like on some of our multi-gen stuff, like you said, some of the original stuff went to more of we'll call it a darker rust, where now they're holding better.
I also feel like it's gotta be it's animal specific, right? Too. Like they're not all gonna be the same. And I'm sure if you continue to breed and work with animals that are holding that brilliant color later in life over generations, you should be able to have a higher percentage that are holding more vibrant colors.
Yep.
But I'm sure in the past people have snapped pictures at their best and use that as their representation when they're making stuff. And if they dull out a couple of years later, they're still selling it with the look of the at the best case. Like I know this has happened with the green tree world. Because like I know you're relatively familiar, right? Like how they go through the ontogenic color change. Well, like a lot of them continue changing for 4 or 5 years, but they have a phenotype that looks incredible at 2 or 3 years old. They take the picture of that, and that's the selling point for that animal forever.
Yeah, and
Uh,
they look cool like that, but that's yeah.
Melanism is a huge part with the with that is when they're still making the color change, they can be super high in like black scales. Well, show me that same animal when they're 7 or 8 if they still have a lot of black scales. Like that's a line I want. But if they're only 2 or 3 years old, I'm not sure it's gonna keep any of it. But I feel like the same thing. Um, I mean, I've done that. I didn't even realize I did this by accident. I had one that I thought was like very, very red, one of my males, and like it was still advertising when I was selling some of its babies. The parent picture of what they looked like when I took the last time I took a picture. I had like a little photo collage of mom and dad. And I'm like, God, he really doesn't look that vibrant red anymore. He's like 3 now and he's more of a rust. And I'm like, I should probably be advertising its parents more equipped to like what the long-term adult color is going to look. And I've had another one where it's the opposite. It's gotten away more red, and I'm like, crap, I need to change this too, because this is a better depiction of what you're going to have this animal for 20, 25 years of what the true representation from father side is.
Yeah, and that is very a good point to put across. Like a lot of ours, we just did the breeding picture of that year, so at least you get it.
If they're younger animals, that's all you can give.
Yeah,
and it's yeah.
But yeah, that is true. Like one of our first generation orange ones we produced here, it's still solid orange, but it's more dull on top, I guess be the best way to put it.
Mm-hmm.
Where, that now we're finally getting them to keep that vibrancy at least. But as I say that, 5 years down the road, we'll see how they look. Only time will tell.
Yeah. I mean, that's another good point too, is who knows. I'm very curious to see some of these things that I'm producing that have gotten great by year one or looking even better at year two. But like, is there going to be a point where probably now I'm thinking they're probably at their peak, but like, are they going to start dropping off in color and pigment? Are they going to just stay that way forever? I don't know. I know that like at least I got good sense and belief that like it's definitely not something I'm too worried about, because I've got some really like older sunrise sunset animals that still look just absolutely brilliant colors, vibrancy and everything. I've seen some of Fenn's stuff that's like a decade plus old now, still holding it. So it's not like I feel strongly about it. Like once you reach like the 2 year mark, you're usually good in the clear about losing color.
Some of the original stuff I have gotten that have bred and ended up kind of using the outcross and then later rehoming or selling as a proven breeder, those after like 3 or 4 started to get a little duller, but a lot of those wore a mix of sunrise, sunset, classic this, fen that, where
any of that stuff have Turner white in it?
A lot had a very small percent, and
I thought for the longest time people were full of it, talking about how the like Turner lines like really take 3-4 years plus to lighten up. I thought that was just like a selling. I mean, it still is difficult because some of them just don't do it at all. But I thought for a while that was just like a tactic to like push off some of these animals, and I've got quite a few that were like kind of light that have just really between year 3 and 4 have gotten really white and really pale. And I'm wondering if even like a small percentage of those G's can cause like a later loss of pigment.
So I would say potentially on some of the early on being, it might have been closer to like 6%,
Mm-hmm.
but some of the other stuff now we're at like 0.1%,
Yeah,
where like one of them I held back originally that was significantly more peach. I'm going to pull him up to show you. Where he is now, a lot more paler, not white. So I do, I agree with you to an extent on some, but also in what you're talking, I know those were a lot higher percentage than what I'm talking about. Where is that? Here we go.
okay.
And that is even he is 12 2.5%. So not a ton. But
The
it
other thing I've always kind of wondered with these guys is like how much, like, I mean, I know because it's just so wishy-washy with polygenics versus genetics. Like, I know we punch in numbers just to like kind of try and make the most sense of it. But how much is something really going to be 12.5% of something? Like, I know that that's like the genetic breakdown like of its heritage, but something that's 12.5% could easily visually exhibit like 50% from that portion of its genetics, and another one will produce absolutely zip.
well, and the hard part on that, you you're right. Like it's 12% on
Yeah.
a percentage standpoint, but what they actually get from each parent, depending on each sibling, could be different. They could
Yeah.
get a different amount of
Exactly.
DNA from one, and
I feel like ultimately that a percentage is important because it kind of acts as like our version of those lineage charts and green tree pythons because it helps make sense of it. But I think when you start mixing and matching that much with polygenics and these different lines that have been like curated over years and generations of breeding, is that you got to roll with their phenotype and just keep track of that percentage to like make sense of it when things are anomalies from when you from your expectations, or to help you project your expectations. But it's just, I don't know, I feel like too many people see those percentages and just
even when
try
the
and
percentage,
rationalize them
even
because
when the percentage is less, like so this year I did the visual one to one I was hoping was a het that's red, and she came from two red parents, and two of the six are red, two are salmon, one's orange, and one's like a peach rust. They're just from, but there is a lot of lineage mixed in, but even from a pretty strong phenotype look, the head was solid red on the parents and the grandparents. And
yeah, like I mean, another example I've seen is like, so pitch black seems to be a very dominant color trait, and from my pairing so far, it's dominated any kind of color I've tried to mix in, trying to do like a Halloween project kind of thing, like some people have been doing, but
yeah,
more so focused with the deep red, not so much orange. And I just got nothing but dark edibles that look classic bands in between. But James was telling me, he's like, no, just give it another generation. Like, sometimes your color almost acts like it's recessive, and that's where I guess these percentages can come into play to help reason when stuff starts popping out of animals
yeah,
that look like they would.
I agree. Like, so I have it's like a 75% female that is a good example of that, where she got that, significant brightness from her parents. But even then, like, some reason, the a lot only two of the 12 first generation babies had any black, so I held those back and then did the pitch black male again. So it was pretty selective at first to get to that end result, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a straight line. Like, there's the percent matters, but
Oh
you
yeah,
also,
yeah. No, I mean, it all matters. Like, obviously you still want to take the best looking examples that came from the pairing, but there's stuff there that you're only gonna know by the percentages sometimes, I guess is what I'm saying.
yeah. And the harder part you mentioned on like the Turners, some of the pitch black take a little bit for that black to come in too, where some of those could have got more black with
there's another one
whoever
of
else
my
got them.
problems that I've got. I've made a litter of trying to do the pitch black magma combos, and I'm like, can't let the best black ones go, and they're gonna take 6 months plus for me to know. So I'm still sitting on like 10 yearlings that I don't need. I have a holdback problem for sure, and I'm scared to get into green tree pythons because everyone talks about that's already the only way that people like. It's already accepted to do that.
Yeah.
So if I have a bunch of people telling me you can keep all of them, it's okay. It's gonna be bad.
So some people might not like this answer, but I'm curious. Some is very true. You don't know what you're going to get. So it's nice to hold it back, but it also makes it helps the more established people initially. It's good and bad. That's not the best way to put it either, but you get where I'm going. Like, makes it a little easier for them to sell, but they are 100% right. You don't know what you're going to get on some of those till, you said they changed almost till 5 years on some, so only time does tell.
I have a couple Turners that people would think I'm crazy if I was going to tell them they're not as white as an ivory, but they're pretty dang white.
Yeah.
The only thing is they've got like scales in between, a little bit of pattern going, but there's we've got some really white ones, and they're not by any means pure either. They've got like at least 30 something percent, like a caramel sunset mix in them.
Yeah.
But
no, but even on green trees though, those take longer to change.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard there's like everything so different with those, and it's all over the map. Like the color change, I've got a couple that it just happened in like a blink of an eye over like a week, and they're like all green. Some that really pixelate and take like a long time to change their colors, and then there's other ones like the blue line stuff. You can either get, they call it a super blue, where they'll just immediately go from their neonate red coloration, and scales will change from the red to blue, or others will go green like normal, but the green starts to wash away, and over years, like it can be like till they're like 4 or 5, they'll go from phase to the blue. So I guess there's some that are kind of like follow the Turner concept, where they phase to blue over years, and some of them follow like the ivory concept, where they're just like not a white but a color that looks unique.
Yeah.
And just scales go straight to the white. Couldn't tell you how or why though.
How many green trees do you have now?
Here I've got 12. I've got one more coming that I'm patiently waiting for, but it's going to be a little bit. We're a friend, or I consider him a friend now, but a guy that I purchased it from is going through the lengthy process. I guess they used to be able to shed sex green trees at like the same company that does a lot of the genetic testing for ball pythons.
Yep.
And it was just too cost prohibitive with the numbers, but there's like another way they can do it. It's less expensive if they got like the father, the mother, and the paternal grandfather shed.
Yeah, that's the only way they can now, I believe.
So he's got all that, and so he's holding out because I guess he's working on getting that and shed testing everything for genders before he sends anything out. So that's my last one.
It sounds like that process can take a little bit too from the podcasts. I hear them talk about it. Even
Yeah,
with the
I don't
sheds.
know, but it will be cool to be have one of the few animals of like. I mean, there was a few that were proven before, but to have something that's got that stamp and like it's been, I know the gender would be kind of cool.
Are any of yours ready to breed or not old enough for next year?
I will probably be pairing my first ones in 2028 or 2029.
Oh wow. Okay.
I have one old male that kind of got me sparked on it. I've wanted green trees my whole life. Friend gave me the one because he's moving to Hawaii and couldn't have any reptiles. He's like 20 something and it's an Aru type. And got me interested in actually pursuing it from like a breeding standpoint and like finally making the plunge. So I just started figuring out what I wanted to do. Picked out a good number, but I just got all babies.
Yeah.
Like I'm not in a hurry with it. I got so many other projects that I still want to accomplish. I've got some chameleon goals that I'm still probably 3 to 5 years away from reaching before I'm ready to like kind of slim that down, focus on just like a little bit. Like I've done what I need to do there. The skink things, I keep thinking like I have a couple things I'm ready to narrow it down and just focus on perfecting and like just doing red, like the best red stuff. Now that I've got other stuff to infuse into it and just getting as red as I can get with as good genetic diversity, and then the true recessives and the true genes. But every single time I start getting babies, something has me sparking the idea that there's like another direction to start taking things. So I don't even, I mean, the skinks are gonna, everything I work with right now, chameleons, skinks, and the snakes, I don't think I'll ever not be working with them. But I think the snakes are gonna line up with hopefully being ready to take a step back on how intense I am with chameleons. And then I think things go well with green trees and I'm liking it, maybe by that time I'll have a more narrow focus on blue tongues or have everything outside and have everything kind of an idea of what I want to be doing long term with those and then have more time. So I'm not in any hurry whatsoever to get eggs on the ground with the snakes. So just kind of going through the process. I think I got the bulk of the group that I want, and now it'll be like maybe I'll pick up one or two a year to expand it before, and then in a few years probably just plan to close the collection because Nido freaks me out.
Yeah, that is scary, especially, it killed a lot of green trees in the past.
It has, yeah.
And have you tested for it at all? I know a lot of them preventively already test.
Um, Everything I've got has either been tested, sent to me with a test, or gotten tested. I don't know how to. I'm afraid to do it. Like I don't really know what I'm doing. I've watched a video. Friend of mine who's local is gonna come through and do like soon is gonna do like a tutorial with me on grabbing the snake comfortably and testing it. We're gonna go through and test everybody. But I mean, I got gloves changed every time I'm handling one. Gloves on, gloves off before I go to another enclosure. I have a different set of tongs for every animal. Like I've got everything set up. There's things come in a quarantine room. But yeah, I would like to hit everybody with a test in house, not just trusting the test that they came with, and then do it again in 6 months before I'm like totally feel comfortable. But I'm just trying to follow pretty stringent biosecurity with them to a certain degree.
That's good. And That's
And it's made me start to be at least a little bit better with some of these other species. I never really even thought about it with like skinks or chameleons.
yeah. They could
I
all
just
get it.
like I've never really worried about too much with skinks other than mites. Like being like once I feel like I got an animal in that there's no worry about that. I'm like they can just the quarantine was just not long or not serious ever, even with the giant collection I've got. This has made me really reconsider the whole process that I do just bringing in any new animals going forward ever.
Also, with the certain animals that have potentially ventured from Australia, there's also the shingleback Nido that is possible to transfer because there's different types in
Bobtail
that.
flu, right?
What's that?
They call it bobtail flu.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
I
it's
think about
basically a
that.
different
That's very
strain.
true. Yeah.
But, and I don't know if that one they could test for here or not. Whereas, I don't think that one's common here. It's more the serpent form and like ball pythons and green trees, where, it's the opposite in Australia.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is I'm gonna try and keep it out of here. and but yeah, I do need to. I've got like right here. Got a bag of swabs all ready to go. These are all the RAL Nido swabs.
Yep.
Whole thing of them ready to go. I just got to talk to a friend of mine from like grade school who runs House of Blue pythons. Got his own like locality cross blue line of
Yep.
green trees. He's supposed to one of these days we got to get over here. He's gonna just show me like the way to do it with minimal stress on them. I'm also really worried with the smaller ones when I'm trying to do this about messing with their tail. So like learning a technique that because they say that you can just break the vertebrae on their tail because they're prehensile, but they're weak as heck and they're like string thin when they got neonates. They're tiny.
Well, at
Like
least on
if you're tugging around trying to get that going and it just decides to wrap, it just scares me. I don't know. I'm not.
well for Nido, they swab the mouth, so it'll be an oral swab. So you should be good on that end, like the tail. You don't have to.
No, yeah. It's an oral swab, but it's just like the fact that like when they're squirming, because like they're not cool with like the young ones and stuff. Some of them will flash and throw. Haven't figured out what the right grip is to like hold the snake and keep it in place to get in its mouth and
Okay.
swab it. Because like they make it look so easy. Like when I've seen like there's just like one or two videos on YouTube, it's not that easy to hold these guys when they don't want to be held.
Yeah,
I want to
I
be
can
out of
imagine.
birds. So but yeah, it's. I'm sure once you get it, it seems like once you understand what you're doing, it's easy. But so many things we do with the other reptiles we work with, and when we're trying to explain to a new keeper, you don't get why they don't get it, and it's like you gotta go back to thinking before you knew anything about reptiles. And it's like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. That's I don't know.
No, that's very true. The simple little handling techniques that are ingrained, basically second nature now, they have no clue on.
Yeah, like can't fathom. I'm like, what do you mean you don't understand? Like a chameleon holds you, you're not gonna grab it. Like it's like your hand's a branch. Like it's second nature to me. Or like when I'm holding my skinks, like gotta just support their four legs. Don't worry about their belly. If their four legs are supported, they think they're on solid ground.
Yep.
And it's second nature, but I'm sure there's just little things, little tricks that they've got for keeping them calm while they swab them. Same thing.
I'm I would imagine you're all good based on how you did it, but I'm curious to see how it goes.
I mean, I'm hoping everything's great, but like I would think that based on what I've heard in the past, I think that thinking that would be my demise with the species. So I'm gonna keep thinking that I've got a snake that's got Nido until I've learned how to do it and tested everything randomly at least 3 times.
Yeah, putting those extra protocols in. Worst case, you waste some gloves.
It's just too much freaking. Also, it's like, I mean, I care about every animal equally, but like it's too high of risk, and I've put too much into them to not take it just 110% serious all across the board. And like I've learned from cutting corners in previous species and previous projects, like I just, now that I don't have to backtrack and like fix corner cutting, I guess, because like in the past, like I want to do things the most cheapest way, and then I find problems with the cheapest way. I've tried to find the next most like economic way to do something. I find problems with it. I'm like, this is a species, or like I'm just gonna do everything rock solid and not try and cut at any corners, trim anything. Like I'm thankfully at a point where I can, like, everything's self-sufficient for me with the animals other than my time. It's a lot of my time. Probably don't get my money's worth on that, but otherwise it's all good. They're like a good project that I can go just doing everything, learning everything I can, whether it's like watching like the podcast that people put out, listening to all the different breeders, just trying to get as close to perfect as I can.
What could we do to kind of, I guess, go back and something we could help future breeders that you've learned in the past?
With just in general, or with blue?
Yeah, like, kind of like a good final wrap up tip for someone watching.
Well, when it comes to blue tongues, I would start with, well, okay, based on what I've learned and what I did with shinglebacks this past year, I think I would want to try, and any indoor keeping, I would want to try and do this one method for all breeding. If you're going to breed blue tongues, get big enough enclosures that you can keep a pair in and feel comfortable that you can just keep them together for the breeding season, which I think it's a 2x2x6. It would be the space that I'd be comfortable giving them, with a lot of hiding space, because that's bigger than what some people's outdoor sections are for pairs. I wouldn't do racks, wouldn't do anything, because if you're starting small, like, you don't have to backtrack on infrastructure. Just start with a pair or a very small number of animals and work up. And don't, if you have to downsize in their cage space to expand your business, don't do it.
Yeah,
I think it would be one of the factors that I'd say. But there's a company called Apex Caging. They do like everything modular and like 2 foot by 2 foot cubes. And you can like buy a cage and then expand it. You can buy like a 2 foot extension kit. So I have a 2x4 and a 2x6 that my male and female shinglebacks are in, and I just connect it into a 2x10 during breeding season.
that's smart.
So I would say doing something like that and having like the ability, and then just not let nature take its course when it comes to the pairing process. Give them be able to give them, if you want to work with blue tongues, starting now, knowing what we know in the past, don't put yourself in a situation where you got to take things out and pair your animals in tubs. If you can avoid it,
Yeah.
get setups going, whether it's indoors or outdoors, where whether you keep them together year round in something really big or introduce them, but like for longer than just a breeding session. That's what I would recommend. That's what I would like to start being able to do. And then the other thing is, unless you're really, really handy, don't try and DIY too many things. Like I mean, I think maybe I'm just clueless, but I've tried to do over the years. It would be gross the amount of money I've wasted on failed DIY projects. Unless it's like do it yourself, like, okay, here's like somebody has done it and they're showing you how. Just like don't go out and like try and find like I'm gonna come up with my own way because I know better than everybody else how I'm gonna make this process work and it'd be cheaper. Like, oh, this guy tells me I can make racks with a light, but like if you had it, I don't know if you have a video on how you make your custom racks, where you got the lighting in there.
Yep.
Like, don't be the new guy that's never done anything and be like, oh, I see that, and I'm like, I'm gonna find a way to make something that works for these cheaper and easier. Like, take the advice people and learn from other people's mistakes. Don't go out thinking you're gonna do something better before you've kind of got your bearings anyway.
Well, and with
take the learnings of others, it'll speed the process.
One thing to mention too, as you say that, you know, if you don't think ahead on how you're setting it up, you got to, you know, you don't want to have a fire or something like that either. Just, you know, overall, you know, to plan ahead, like we have metal screen where the lights are.
Everything. And I mean, actually, I guess what it really comes down to is just be patient and take your time. Like, I feel like the ball python world ruined a lot of people's mindset about like having to be so quick to the next big thing. And I know I was part of that. That was my mindset going into stuff. Like, I felt like I wanted to be the first to be the next one to elevate something or not.
Yeah.
And it's just like, do things for you. Like ultimately, if you're not gonna be, you should be your best customer. The best animals you make should not be going up for sale for thousands of dollars. The second best and third best maybe, but if you're finding yourself always just selling all the best stuff, you're probably not doing this for the right reasons. And unless you have to, that's not always going to be the case. Sometimes in a financial situation where you need to let the best ones go, but breed for yourself, not for others, and take your time, whether that be not cutting corners from like the DIY thing. I guess it's just in a broader sense. Just take a breath and enjoy the process.
I think that's a great way to put it. And I think probably a great way to wrap it up. You know, we're at the 2-hour point. I wanted to thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And if anyone's looking for a skink or a chameleon, Cold-Blooded Connoisseurs on Morph Market, Facebook, everything.
Yep. Morph Market, Instagram. Honestly, this is a bad that I don't even know if I have it on Facebook. Instagram and Morph Market.
Yeah.
This is the only 2 places I'm on there, or it's just my name, Miles Sunder, on Facebook.
All right. Well, thank you again, and you have a great rest of your night, and I appreciate everyone watching.
You too.